Okay, that worked.
Perfect. The OCD part of me always likes it when there's symmetry there.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, my fabulous panel of this morning, first session. I'm Marc-Antoine, your host. I'm very happy and thrilled to welcome you all here. And hello and welcome to everybody who's connecting to the session right now and who's already connected. Welcome to this day number 2 of Miami Live 2021. The French-American Chamber of Commerce is thrilled to welcome you and give you a day number 2 with, well, a more local dive into the local industries of tech in Miami and South Florida. Yesterday was more of an overview. Today is more about local industries and really subject-specific ones. And to kickstart the morning, we have Miami's MedTech moment, the past, present, and future of Miami's medical and life science industry. I am thrilled to hear about all that you have to say. And before we do, I just want to remind you a couple things, mostly for navigation purposes. On your left, you will have the tabs. You have session, and in sessions, you will find the different sessions of the day where you can find the keynotes and the speakers and experts throughout the day. So please do go and visit that. Do not go now because you'll leave the table otherwise, but you can always come back. Networking tab is where you can meet and greet for 3 minutes randomly anyone that's in the networking tab. That's a little bit of a chat roulette system. It's fun. You definitely get to get the most out of the 3 minutes of meeting randomly. I really encourage you to try it out. It's a lot of fun. And then under you have Expo. That's where our sponsors and partners, whom I want to really thank on behalf of the French and American Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
You can go visit them. They have a virtual expo booth, and you can meet and greet and also discuss any information you may need from them. So please do pay them a visit whenever you have time between sessions. And in the meantime, I'm going to give Greg Horowitz, VP of Economic Development for the Miami-Dade Beacon Council, a great welcome. Hello, Greg. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for hosting us here today.
Of course, with great pleasure. Greg, you're going to be our moderator this morning. Thank you very much for accepting to do this. Your panelists, you will probably go in more details, but I just wanted to say hi and thank you for being here. To Jonathan Weiss, Global Head of Government Affairs for Insightec. Hi, Jonathan. And Serge Elkiner, CEO and co-founder of Yellow Pepper Holdings. Hi, Serge. Hello, hello.
How are you?
Good, thank you. And Monica Ochaney, CEO Strategic Endeavors 3SE. Hi, Monica. And Elisa Medrano, Director of Labs and Life Sciences, Cambridge Innovation Center. Hello, Elisa. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
All right. Greg, floor is yours.
Okay. Well, first of all, I wanted to introduce Christelle MAFFRE from Enterprise Florida, and she's going to give a brief overview of the work that Enterprise Florida does and how they work. You know, they're somebody who we work very closely with Beacon Council, and I'll explain in a minute what Beacon Council does. But so I'd like to turn it over to Christelle. Are you there? Okay, I'm not sure. She was on a second ago. So, okay. Well, we'll switch things up a little bit. I'll talk first about Beacon Council and just give an overview of Miami and our life sciences industry to sort of set the table for our conversation. So hold on, I promise this PowerPoint will be brief and to the point. And I don't want anyone to.
And in the meantime, if you don't mind, Greg, just for our panelists, if you want to mute yourselves when you're not talking so that we have the least possible disruptions from emails, a phone, a cat or a kid just barging into the screen.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Can everybody see this? So first of all, just a quick overview. I'm sure you've been hearing lots about Miami over the last few days, but you know, we are the biggest market in Florida. The entire metro area is 6.2 million residents, and have a large GRP rather. And for the purposes of this discussion, there's just a few things I want to talk about. That one is that there's really great talent here from our research universities and all the various schools. And the key thing really to focus on here, I think, is that we're the #1 U.S. metro for foreign-born population, but it's also a highly educated population of people who come. So people come here from all over who are highly skilled, highly educated, and really bring a lot to our ecosystem. And in particular, in the medical and health field, it's the #2 major for the graduates of any local school. And this stat always stuck out to me because most areas, if you see them, you would assume that like liberal arts is going to be up high and business would be up high. But the fact that health is #2 is I think really a testament to how big the medical sector is to our local economy. And I'm not sure how much this story has kind of gotten out past our borders, but Miami has become the hot destination in the U.S. over the past year. You can see that it's in terms of inflow of migration from other parts of the U.S. and the world, really. And actually, the interesting thing, if you look at this graph, is 30% New York City, 11% San Francisco, 10% Los Angeles. That means that fully 50%, half of this graph, that pie chart that you see, is people from New York and California. So we're really getting, we're getting people from the big business centers of the U.S. are coming here because there's really something going on here. In terms of our medical industry, it's very large. We have lots of prominent companies, and also, if you notice, #1 in startup activity, which is significant. So, and you'll hear about a couple of those today. We have our major health systems here. We have our major research universities. And this slide is really important because, as much as a lot of people have been moving here and there's been a lot of activity in Miami in the past year, the really key point is that over the past decade, there's been so much work done to really set the table for this moment. And, groups like the Beacon Council, like CIC, who you'll hear more about today, like the Knight Foundation, which has helped fund so much of this. There's been so much work put in. And as a result, as people started coming here, as companies and investors and capital, we were really ready to take advantage of that moment. And so this is just, you'll hear more about this today, but this is an incredibly exciting time for Miami. In terms of the Beacon Council, we are a public-private partnership. We get some money from the county, Miami-Dade County, and some money from corporate memberships. And we are effectively the county's economic development agency. We offer a wide range of services at no cost and completely confidential. And we basically want to do anything we can to help any company that's moving here, whether it's regulatory assistance, whether it's connecting with investors, talent development, real estate site selection, anything that we can do, incentives, all those things that we want to make your transition to Miami as smooth as possible so that we can help work with you to create jobs in Miami-Dade County. So that's the table setting. You can see my contact information there. And please, if you are interested in relocating here or expanding or anything like that, reach out, and I'm happy to help. And with that, I will. I think okay. I can see it. Okay. I don't know if we have Christelle yet.
We seem to be the only 6 in the session as speakers. So Christelle needs to connect onto the session tab and onto this session. If Christelle can hear us or is viewing us, maybe it's not the right link, and Rachel will be with you, helping you in a second.
Okay. Well, I'll put in a quick word for her. Enterprise Florida is the state economic development agency. We cooperate a lot with them, and they have a much more global reach. They have people in lots of different countries, and she is based in France, so she is also a very good contact. And we will make sure to distribute her contact information. So I would say, if you're planning on relocating here, reach out to both of us. And we'll work together, and we're very happy to help you. So with that, I would like to get our panel discussion underway. And what I'd like to do is go around to have all of our panelists weigh in, and please, obviously introduce yourself and give us your background. And the other thing, we were discussing this before, there's only one person on this panel who is a native Miamian, which is something that you'll find very often here. There are a lot of people who moved here from elsewhere, and that's usually a really interesting part of the story. So as you introduce yourself, talk about why you or your company or both ended up in Miami and what helped drive that decision. And then we'll go from there. So why don't we start with Serge Elkener? Serge, you're on mute.
Serge, you need to unmute yourself. We can't hear you otherwise. Oh, I'm very bad at sign language. What you're trying to say is that you're trying to do something and you might reconnect a little later. Is that something like this? Yes. Okay, perfect. Maybe, Greg, we shall direct a question to one of our panelists that has.
While Serge figures that out, why don't we have someone else introduce yourself? Jonathan, can you weigh in?
Sure. I was going to recommend we start with the native Floridian, but I'm happy to start.
That is a surprise.
I'm a native New Yorker, and what drove me and my family, my wife and 2 small kids to relocate to Miami, Florida. Miami was purely quality of life. It was the driving factor. In New York City, I'll give a small little bit. You live in a little box, you pay really high taxes, and you're in the freezing cold throughout all of the winter. And there was just a better way. And so decided, you know what, I have a transferable skill set. Let me see what's going on down south. And, landed on Insightec, which was a $175 million valued company at the time. And in the 6 years that we've been building it, went to 1.5 billion and growing tremendously. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, untapped opportunity. It's being tapped right now, and it's the place to be. So I head up the government affairs programs for our global footprint, which includes 26 countries and over 100 locations where our technology is installed. Really quick, it's focused ultrasound technology that does brain surgery with sound waves. It's fully FDA approved and fully CE mark approved. It's really fantastic, and that's a little bit. I'll pass the mic over.
Okay, I think we have Serge now.
Does it work now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry about that. There is an issue when I mute and unmute the thing. So my apologize. So Serge Elkener, I was actually born and raised in Brussels, Belgium. Moved to the US to study in Boston, and then moved to Miami after starting my company, Yellow Pepper, in Boston. Attracted by, that was like 14 years ago, by the way, that I moved to Miami. So definitely one of the original OGs when we discuss like technology company as a whole, and then our company started focusing in fintech at Yellow Pepper. But then throughout the course of my stay in Miami, I also co-founded Corquest Medical with a cardiothoracic surgeon that came from Belgium to Miami. We had great support from the local community to develop the medical device that we did at Corquest, and then sold the company in 2013 to Bioscience, Cardio 3 Bioscience. And the device are now actually being used in real life. So it was a very exciting experience in the med tech. And then from a technology standpoint, of course, Miami now is definitely having its moment in technology in general, and then in fintech in general. And we were also one of the early exit in fintech because we sold the company Yellow Pepper last year in November to visa. And so we're seeing the cycle come full circle and be able not only to found company in Miami, fundraise in Miami, and then exit in Miami. So it's very exciting to see everything that's happening right now in Miami. And I really strongly believe that this time is for real, because we had a few times that we thought Miami would have its moment over the last 15 years, but this time it really definitely feels that all the stars are being aligned, from the support of the city, the support of the county, etc., to make this happen.
Great. Ellie?
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Elisa Medrano. I am the Director of Labs and Life Sciences at the Cambridge Innovation Center here in Miami. I'm actually the Miami native, so it's very rare to find someone in Miami that's actually from Miami these days, but I'm very happy to be here. I actually left for school and traveled. I lived in Spain for a while, and I came back home to Miami, really looking to find a place that was doing really great work. And so I was at a crossroads in my life saying, I'm either going to go independent or really find a company that's aligned with my mission. And the sort of personal story here is that I was just Google searching, as we do when we're trying to find what's out there, what are companies doing, who's doing innovative things that are good for the environment, that are good for the world. And so I came across a press release that the Cambridge Innovation Center, which is originally from Cambridge, Massachusetts, was looking into Miami as their next expansion site. And so I reached out to them immediately, and the rest is history. So I've been a core founder of the Miami location, helping it launch here and building the site from scratch. So the Cambridge Innovation Center is a co-working space for high growth companies, but it's a little bit more of a hybrid incubator and accelerator, and this real true stakeholder in the Miami community. So it's been quite a journey to see us grow over the last 6 years. I think, as Serge mentioned, if you've been in Miami for a while, or you've kept up with what's happening here, we've had a sort of surge of energy in the mid 2000s, but the stars are really aligning because of the hard work that we're doing here and really getting core players into Miami, making sure that everyone is coming out of their silos to work together. CIC has quickly become the sort of center of gravity for these conversations, along with Beacon Council and Enterprise Florida and our universities, to make sure that we're giving our startups and our migrant companies the right resources to really make Miami home and to help to scale your companies quicker. So I know we'll get a lot more into that in a bit, but that's in a nutshell how I got into CIC, how CIC sort of chose Miami was really looking at the opportunities here. We had a lot of ideas, there was a lot of money here and core infrastructure, but those things just weren't working together. So it was a perfect breeding ground for us to come in and do what we do best, which is to help build these innovation districts, particularly in cities that need an economic boost in development. And that's where we can make the most impact. And so we chose Miami knowing that it was the gateway to the Americas and beyond. And we chose Miami because of the strong infrastructure that was here. But we just needed to help the city sort of rebrand and make sure that we were creating more strategic partnerships, both locally and abroad, to build into what it is today. So very excited to welcome everyone and for your excitement for Miami. We've been waiting for you, and excited to be a part of the panel.
Great. And then we have Monica.
Hi there. Good morning. Thanks, Greg. Great to be with everybody. So I am an entrepreneur here in South Florida, and really grateful to be on this panel with some other entrepreneurs and those that are really monitoring the trends in this wonderful place. So I've had many chapters actually as an entrepreneur, and in those many chapters, that's taken me to many places. Having my start in Chicago, growing up there, born to Indian parents that had moved from India. And then that took me over to schooling in Boston, then living in Southern California, and then Southern California then moved me over to Southern Florida. So there was a real calling that I had to Florida, which was for graduate school and in natural products chemistry. So healthcare has been a part of my journey for a long time. The way I would describe myself is as a recovering scientist, now turned public-private sector strategy enthusiast in technology for the last 20 years. And that has actually helped me use my now healthcare lens for my newest venture in wellness. So combining health tech and wellness. And a little bit more background on me, I think why wellness became so important to me, it's really linked back to some of my earlier work, which was working for the Smithsonian in DC and then living in the Amazonian rainforest for a while. So that's a little something different about my journey. And it was during those years I understood how important it was for peoples and cultures to manage their healthcare, to manage their bodies, and a real appreciation for the natural world and natural products chemistry and how that's so important in the healthcare space. So that really became that seed to me for wellness and healthcare. And I'm just happy to be with all of you here and talk a little bit more about that and how the South Florida system is growing in the healthcare space in all kinds of different ways.
Great. Well, thanks everybody. And we have a really, really great panel, interesting backgrounds with everyone. So I want to start off by just going around having everybody say, obviously, you know, we know people hear about Miami and why is Miami a great place, and they know the weather and maybe the taxes. What in your mind is one thing that's maybe not the first thing that everybody knows about Miami, but that's sort of an underrated strength of the city and this region, and in particular maybe around this around our medical industry. So why don't we start with Ellie?
Sure. So I think, and you had this in one of your slides, which is really important. We have the second largest health district in the US right here in Miami, which is a core strength that many people don't know about. We also have the Port of Miami, which is very important for international trade and goes very far in helping the life sciences as well. And our location sort of being part of the Caribbean, and this gateway and easy launch pad into LATAM and the Caribbean allows also for interchanging of technology, for outsourcing of things like human clinical trials are a lot easier to do in the Caribbean and Latin America. So we've seen a lot of Miami-based companies or companies that have migrated to Miami because of the access that they have to not only international markets, not only the Port of Miami and the health districts, that you have a huge value source of researchers and research institutions that are tried and true, but you also have the ability to expand and collaborate with international companies. And I think that that's something that's so uniquely Miami. It's a very geographical plus that we have, but I think very understated until very recently. Not a lot of people really understand or have looked or connected the dots as to why, yes, Miami has amazing weather, but we really are at this epicenter of a lot of the movement. So people come through Miami to enter the US market because it's easier to get started here. So yes, I can talk on and on about this forever, but I want to give someone else the mic.
Okay, Serge, you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, Miami is, there was a lot of things that happened over the last 15 years. And I think it's like kind of, it grew, right? So I started the company, Yellow Pepper, I started the company in Boston, which was, when I started the company, you had two epicenter in the US for founding company, which was Boston and Silicon Valley in a sense. And it all revolved around, you know, founding the company, but the resource to fundraise in those cities where the VCs were really operating, and VCs also wanting to have the company very close to where they were operating, right? And so Miami always had this issue that funding was a big problem because you never had local VCs or local angel well organized. So you had the issue of like, you started having angel organized, then you started wanting to go to your Series A, you couldn't do it in Miami, then Series A came, and then Series B was the problem, and then so on and so forth. And I think over the last definitely 18 to 24 months, this accelerated dramatically. And you have a lot of founders that sold company, whether in Miami or elsewhere, mostly elsewhere, that came to Miami during the pandemic and started bringing an inflow of funds basically behind them. Whether the fund is operating in Miami or not became irrelevant. The pandemic as well changed that dynamic of having the company next to you, because talent started being sparse as well. So a lot of the talent started moving as well to Miami, or some of the talent started moving to Miami. So you now started to have all of these good elements to start companies, fundraise, hire talent, or be able to convince talent to move to Miami, because that was another issue that we faced throughout the years, which was we would recruit talent, but it was difficult to convince them to move to Miami. And now you can do all of that. And of course, the mayor Francisco Suarez with, how can we help, or how can I help tweet that was, of course, extremely famous with all of the crypto craze that is around the city, and really like fomenting this as a pioneer city in the crypto world, attracted as well a lot of attention and a lot of talent from around the world. So I think it's really, the change has been slowly coming over the past 10 plus years, but the last 24 months and the last 18 months have been the most exciting. And it's like, they use in tech companies and in startups the blitzscaling type of expression. So we're seeing now that Miami is on this and South Florida in general, not only Miami, but South Florida in general is really having this blitzscaling moment to attract talent, attract people, founding company here. And people, when they decide now to move to the US, Miami is definitely not only for Latin Americans, but for everybody in the world. It's a point of consideration to actually come here and found their company or their outpost in the US.
Great. Monica, what do you think is Miami's underrated strength?
Oh, I'm so bullish on Miami. I love it. And I think that I could go on, but I think just what Serge talked about is so important, is that I worked with hospitals like Nicholas Children's Hospital, and at that time we were looking at ways in which to think differently about even how to train clinicians and how to reimagine patient portals. So that was kind of the legacy systems that were in place in healthcare. And that's definitely, to say what's kind of new and something to think about, is Miami's always experienced a series of waves over decades in terms of how capital has come into Miami, how we've started to change, how we're nimble, how we're resilient. That story goes on and on for decades. Healthcare as a landscape has been pretty traditional in the past. And what I would say is, and coming off of some of Serge's comments having to do with capital coming into South Florida more readily, is that in the last 2 years or so, even maybe 3, we've really focused on things like AR and VR in the healthcare landscape, how to use that and robotics in terms of providing healthcare, how to change how patients get access to healthcare. And then on top of it, aside from traditional hospitals or clinician training, we've actually also started to move into the space of how do people become more preserving their healthcare, maintaining their healthcare, not just going to the doctor when an emergency presents itself. Things like resilient healthcare that's come into South Florida with decentralized clinics all throughout South Florida. There's so many examples of how healthcare has really changed along in the wave. Orcano's acquisition of $600 million just this summer of the university primary care system. I think things like that are just showing how South Florida, Miami is so poised for so much disruption and ingenuity. And it's not just about traditional healthcare systems anymore. It's all the new waves of what healthcare means today. And I think that's what's really exciting. It's just trying to keep up. So not just keep up with what's happening and how healthcare is evolving, but even the capital that's now here to support it.
Great. And Jonathan, what's our superpower?
One quick thing before I dive into like specifics. I know Serge, Monica, and Ellie will agree that this is probably the funnest city in the world. And it's not to be underestimated that while everyone is driving super hard professionally, everyone is having an amazingly fun time doing it, where like work-life balance is just like one big ball of good energy, where every every high rise has a pool and balconies and sunny views. So don't underestimate that piece of the quality of life. It's unmatched anywhere. And to get a little bit more specific, because we work with the French AmCham, so we know the French economy when it comes to healthcare and innovation. And while it's super high on the priority list at the executive level, at the government executive level to foster innovation in France, and it's happening, the market is such that you can't just sell your device, even if it has a CE mark. You can't just sell it to a hospital and have them start to use it. It has to go through a process. It has to be adopted and then reimbursed, and then the market will welcome you in. But a hospital can't choose to purchase your medical device, and I know medical devices, and then have customers use it, paying for it from their pocket. It's either all or nothing. And that doesn't exist here in Florida, obviously. It's a free market economy throughout the state, specifically here, especially with the taxes. And throughout all of Florida, you could enter into the market. You could get FDA approval here. You could go through your funding like the team has talked about here. And then you could sell your devices straight into networks and folks who are interested to purchase it, even before these things are being reimbursed by the general healthcare system. And people could pay for it. It's a free market economy. And Florida is a big supporter of public-private partnerships. We're right now in a $100 million partnership aiming to find next generation solutions for Alzheimer's disease. I mean, this is massive, and huge support from the state level and the city level. These public-private partnerships are really what answers. It could be real great answers for our community problems that we face, and this is the playground for these kinds of things.
Great, that's good to hear.
I'm so sorry. I just wanted to jump in on Jonathan's comment really quickly. That's something that I've picked up on from companies that have come into Miami, is this, because the market is new and thriving, the partnerships, both in the public sector and the private sector, are a lot more accessible. And so you'd be surprised how many people will answer your email. Well, you can knock on a door, they'll answer the door. They will answer your phone calls here in Miami, which is very new compared to tier 1 cities that are already saturated, like San Francisco, LA, New York, where it's very hard to get perhaps those conversations or to have a cafecito with the right stakeholders. And in Miami, not only with the partnerships that we have and some of the people here on the panel, we try to make it accessible, but it already is, because of that culture. Maybe it's the sunshine that's warm and inviting, that you will be able to connect with folks that perhaps you would have never thought you'd have access to.
Yeah, that's actually that's usually when people ask me about sort of what makes Miami unique. One of the things I usually talk about is the community, and I think it's very there's just so much energy and goodwill that you see when people move here. Among the people who are already here, it's everybody's kind of in the boat and rowing in the same direction, and it's very encouraging. So, which brings us to that kind of so that was the past and sort of what got to this point. And Serge talked a little bit about what this past year has been like. So I'd like to I'll just throw it out to whoever wants to answer. What are some of the biggest changes, improvements, encouraging signs that you've seen in this past year as sort of Miami's had this big influx of talent? Who wants to go first?
I'll jump in. So to me, what happened, which was quite unique, of course, given the situation the world lived in the last 18 months, is that Florida as a whole, and then of course South Florida amplified that, and Miami in its own way very much amplified that, stayed open. And so while the entire world was in some fashion or another shut down, here pretty much everything was open after a 2 months very light lockdown in 2020, right? So that attracted a lot of people to come and kind of pass or stay for the pandemic shutdown to Florida. And once they tasted, as Jonathan said, one of the best quality of life that we can offer, then why move out, right? And I pass, of course, the incentives from tax purposes and things like that, specifically when you come from California or New York. But at the end of the day, I think that was a catalyst to attracting the people, the influx of people. And when you have that influx of people, then you have the companies that decided to either open satellite offices or plan to open satellite offices or major offices, like we just saw Microsoft announce here in Miami with 50,000 square foot, right? And then you start having the talent to migrate as well, right? So I think it's like first step first, and then you start, you walk before you run, but now everybody's running, right? And you can see that in a lot of areas, like real estate being one of the first one to show that everything is going up, from rentals to property prices, et cetera, right? So I think the last 18 months is we've been rushing through all of these items, and that has made us the eye of or the center of discussion in a lot of circles, definitely in technology, in biotech, in anything that has to do with founding companies, crypto that we discussed before, of course. So Miami is the center of the discussion. And of course, as we enter now Thanksgiving, and the week after Thanksgiving is Art Basel. So that's another way of being at the center of the discussion with the arts, that Art Basel chose that 11 or 12 years ago, but it keeps on bringing Miami back to the center of discussion. And so when you're constantly at the center of the discussion, now it's not, oh, you live in Miami, well, yeah, that's a secondary city. It's like, oh, you live in Miami, everybody envies you that you live in Miami, right? And now it's a serious city to be content with, right? So I think that accelerated in the last 18 months and certainly 12 months.
I'd like to jump in there real quick on your question, Greg, about talent in Miami. So we have a very strong foundation over the years, and it's really poised us for this moment that Serge is referring to over the last 18, 24 months of this real attention on Miami. But I really think that the work of UM and FIU, Miami-Dade College, the coding camps. So not only is it about R&D and having strong research, which Miami has had for many years, but now also the tech talent that is also being guided alongside that. And so a real shout out to our university systems that quickly responded to get the local talent up to speed on that. And so that's been really exciting to not only see the folks that already have been here being reskilled and upskilled to be able to work in the biotech and health tech space, but then also those companies that Serge mentioned that are moving here, also bringing their talent and their hires to Miami. And so that's been just really exciting to watch.
Great. So, okay, so now we've talked about the past and the present. Now I want to look a little into the future. And what I actually would love to do is, especially because the people on this panel have some diverse backgrounds in different areas of the medical industry. So, Serge, your company, and Jonathan, Insightec, are both sort of in the device space. Ellie, you work with a lot of life sciences companies, and Monica, you have a background in sort of health tech, digital health. So I was wondering if each of you could kind of talk about what you've seen in your specific subsector, and what opportunities maybe you see in the future. So Jonathan, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I'm going to go back to the public-private partnership piece of it, because, I'm only going to speak from what I know, right? So I'm going to make it kind of personal and from experience. I hope it could be translated outside of that. But Alzheimer's disease is a major problem in Florida. There's about 600,000 people with Alzheimer's disease in Florida. and it's increasing by 24% by 2025. It's a massive problem, and it's a terrible disease. And what's happening here, and we mentioned there's like a bunch of universities here, and the state and the universities and the hospital systems are all coming together with our technology in order to embark in this massive, $100 million research program to really crack the code for Alzheimer's disease. And this is kind of something that doesn't really happen when universities are sometimes competing with each other for funds and for prestige and for position. And this is something where everybody kind of coming together as one unit to crack the code on something that's been insolvable up until now. So there really have been no real solutions when it comes to Alzheimer's disease. And it's a problem here, and all the universities, it's really a statewide initiative, but it started here locally, and to tackle this and to convene instead of compete. So there's a lot of convening happening. That would be my 2 cents on that topic.
Serge, what was your experience with Corquest, and what did you kind of learn from that?
It actually joins back the idea of what Jonathan just explained, right? So Corquest, the medical or the doctor that co-founded that with me and had the idea, of course, was from Europe, right? So in Europe, you always have that devices are usually certified first in Europe, and then it's more complex to get like the FDA approval here in the US, right? So you get the CE mark first in Europe, and you do all the research and a lot of things maybe here in the US or in collaboration. But here the system, then FIU was starting their medical school at the same time as we were starting the Corquest medical device company. So they gave us labs, they gave us all the tools that we needed to support that research and to support the development of the medical devices that we did at Corquest. So I think it's back to what Jonathan was saying, right? There is a lot of opportunities here and support from the local community, institutions and universities to push the innovation forward. And I think that only amplifies going forward, right?
Yeah, great. Now, Ellie, what are you seeing in the life sciences space? What do you see going forward? How is the industry here changing?
Sure. So just a marker, our laboratories have been at capacity over the last 2.5 years with active wait lists. So we're the only non-educational institution in the region that offers wet laboratory space for rent. In addition to CIC's all wraparound services, which includes the relationship management, which assures that every client has tailored attention to help their company scale quickly. And of course, the infrastructure of the space, so these collaborations and programming and thought leadership opportunities that clients are able to be a part of. Our laboratories booming is in big partnership with the University of Miami. So again, I think this is touching on what Jonathan and Serge were just saying about this public and private sector collaboration and having these conversations happen. So I think, our local institutions have been very traditional and very slow to innovate until now. So it took a while to kind of get our universities to understand the value of partnering and providing resources to startups like Serge's startup, or providing these collaboration opportunities with larger corporations that will help not only the talent that they're bringing feel more engaged and more enthused to be getting their education in Florida, knowing that there's a pathway for them, knowing that there's employment opportunities that are competitive right after, but also that they're now really putting stake and investment behind these core infrastructures that needed to be innovated. Healthcare, health tech, devices that perhaps we weren't looking at in the past because we were a little bit too afraid to take risks. And now that's no longer the case. So I think in the future and currently what we're seeing is this real effort to innovate faster and smarter. In the life sciences, we've seen a boom of clients just sort of growing so quickly. There is an influx with this new investment money that's in Florida, but also this attention to the life sciences because of the pandemic. So many of our clients have also pivoted their work to respond to the pandemic and to respond to the crisis. And now that we have a global eye on how important healthcare, health tech, life sciences are, there's just a lot more funding. And someone here from the audience asked about a 20% increase in salaries. Well, this is because companies are just better funded in Florida. And so we're better able to then have competitive salaries for the talent that we want to attract from other cities. And so we're seeing that as a positive. It's definitely not something to be afraid of if you're looking into Miami or into Florida to build your business here. What's happening is just that we're getting better funding. And so I'm seeing that our laboratories are filled. We're bursting at the seams. We need more space because clients are just scaling a lot quicker, where it would have taken a traditional company many, many years to commercialize. We now have infrastructure like CIC's Converge Labs, which is a shared lab facility for very, very early stage biomedical companies where you can rent by the bench just to get started. And it's super affordable in partnership with University of Miami that donated over $100,000 worth of equipment to allow you to have a launch pad to get your lab started and your research started here outside of university, so you can really keep your IP. And then move into private labs, and then eventually build out your own laboratory somewhere in the city. And so we're seeing that there's not only CIC, but other infrastructures and universities are building laboratory spaces to provide a roadmap and sort of graduation spaces that allows biomedical companies and life science companies to take their research into commercialization much quicker. And so we're very excited about this sort of investment in the physical infrastructure that life sciences companies need, because it's very hard to find laboratory space for rent in a city that perhaps wasn't doing that yet. That's outside of a university. And so Miami was the first. CIC Miami was the first, and now we're seeing that expand. So I think the future is going to be that there's going to be more laboratories that are filled to the brim with companies that are bringing their research and technology well-funded with the right resources and the right talent to really make a big difference in this world.
And Monica, I want you to weigh in, but I'm actually, I'll put a little twist on the question. What have you seen with, obviously our whole health system has gone through a lot of necessary transformation in the last year and a half because of everything we've been dealing with. How have you seen in some of the work that you've done, how have you seen those types of things play out?
Yeah, thanks for that, Greg. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm reflecting, I'm using the lens of what I typically saw in hospitals and the physical space. I have to really just really in support of what Ellie and Jonathan were talking about, how important it is to have the public-private partnership for that physical space capability within our city to be able to accommodate R&D and operations. And what Ellie touched on, which is that 20% increase with that question from Serge in the audience. And again, a benefit. I think that's a huge win. I know a lot of companies will go, 20% increase. I don't know about that, but I would encourage CEOs and executives to think about that and say, what else does that mean? And what else that means is I'm attracting top talent, and I'm asking them to come here and be able to then live the standard of living in this city in a place that's already booming. And so that's the advantage I see to that. In terms of what I see as new, aside from the physical hospital and our traditional kind of medical systems, is the digital space for sure. In terms of digital health and health tech, what I find so exciting about that is because of that strong base we've had in healthcare over the years, it positions us so uniquely with not having having limited shutdowns during the pandemic, also responding to the pandemic and having a solid healthcare base here in this city to then say, how do we digitally solve the healthcare problem for our folks in this community? And so I've been excited to see what that's been evolving into in terms of health tech platforms and how through telehealth and decentralized healthcare and patients taking their own healthcare into their hands and having more of a preventative way of dealing with it versus just, like I said before, I'm not feeling great, now I'm gonna rush to the ER. It's not that anymore. It is step by step, how am I going to take care of myself month by month, week by week, how am I gonna improve my health overall? And that's just having leaps and bounds impacts on the healthcare industry in terms of benefits. And so after the pandemic, I founded Atomic, which is a health tech platform for wellness and whole body rejuvenation experiences. So that's a completely new area for some of us. And that's been just exciting to see how much usage and traction that's been getting as folks are monitoring their own health before they get to an emergency state. So those are just some insights into digital health and health tech that I've been experiencing.
Cool. So I want to throw one more question out to everybody, and then I guess we answered some of the questions, but we'll get open to more Q&A. But so just very quickly, what would be one thing that you would say to anyone out there who is, whether in France or anywhere else, who's considering moving to Miami? What advice would you offer them?
Just come.
Yes. Exactly. Don't
wait. Don't be late to the party.
Exactly.
That's happening now.
Well, and not just late to the party, but really just the momentum. I talk to a lot of other entrepreneurs and folks in the space. There's a lot of momentum, and you want to be a part of that as you grow, especially in South Florida, because if you look at some of the other regions in the U.S., they're not as quickly moving in the way we are. It's completely unique. And so the way we're moving is one thing, but also how we're geographically positioned. So if you want to bring your company here, imagine you're not just serving South Florida, you're serving Latin America, South America, the Caribbean, with already easy ties into Europe. So it's a completely different play. So I would just say it's a great time. Come. There's a lot of people here ready to work with you.
Great. By the way, Christelle, we missed, I know you were having some technical problems before. Did you just want to quickly introduce yourself and talk about Enterprise Florida? Well, you're muted. Christelle, you're muted. We can't hear you. Oh, it's not. It doesn't look like
she's having the same problem I have. You have to
issue.
disconnect and reconnect, and don't touch the mute button. Sorry.
We're all getting used to
Christelle,
there we go.
2 minutes to
Hey,
disconnect.
hey,
And
okay.
perfect.
I hope it's going to work for at least 1 minute. So thanks for giving me the floor. I'm in a third world country in France, so that's why the internet is not really working, it looks like. But like everybody, I'm really pleased you took part of this panel today. Greg and I will be available to assist you. And like Serge said, come and visit, go and meet and use the CIC. And I think we have a lot of resources. We have some French company, not only Sanofi and Mario NutriScience. We had Waterdiam, who is now WIO, who's used CIC to integrate Florida. We also have Spineway, who is a medical device in Fort Lauderdale. So just try and welcome. And I think Greg and I will be pleased to answer any of your questions. And I think some of you may have to answer some of the questions now anyway. Thank you.
Yes, please post any questions that you have in the chat. We'd love to answer. I know we answered the one about salary. There was also one I think I saw. Where was it?
Biotech startups.
But yes, biotech startups often have a long R&D timetable. It took Moderna 10 years. What strategies do you suggest for Miami biotech startup with some successes and NIH grant to raise funding? So, yeah, this funding thing is definitely, it's a big issue. There's clearly a lot of opportunity just because, as we talked about, a lot of capital is moving here. Whether it's VC firms or investors or whatever that are relocating here. So what advice do you have for people looking for funding, particularly in this space?
I guess I'll start. You talk about Moderna 10 years. It's accurate, but right now in the U.S. as a whole, but Florida specifically, because we embrace this free market economy, there's an appetite for fast tracking and accelerating these kinds of discoveries in order to help the community in general. And it kind of started, the pandemic started it. If you look what happened, it took maybe Moderna 10 years, but it took them, 9 months to make the COVID vaccine and get it approved. Right? So the model that was created because of COVID, where the federal government or the government put all this capital to de-risk the biotech side, and told the biotech side, just go to work and solve the problem. Don't worry about it costing $1 billion, because nobody's going to start off trying to invent a medication or a vaccine and put down $1 billion, right? No one's going to do that. You're going to start off with a phase 1 trial, phase 2, phase 3. It'll take 10 years. Right now, there's an appetite for accelerating solutions to these kinds of diseases that biotech startups would be interested to solve. And NIH grants are great. There's local and state level people who are very interested to see what you're up to and what you'd like to do and to find out how to help. So, and now there's an extreme appetite for this because the COVID model proved successful. In the matter of like 9 months, there was 4 or 5 different types of COVID tests and a huge industry around scheduling and tracking of the tests, and then vaccinations as well. And 4 vaccinations that are approved within a 9-month period. This is the time for biotech startups to come here, no question.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Jonathan. It's not just sort of broaden it a little beyond COVID. It's also, I think what COVID did more than anything is like open up our eyes to like other additional possibilities. And it's like, okay, well, there are going to be more bio threats. There are going to be more other risks that maybe we're not thinking of, and in the past people might have dismissed those because that never happens. But
absolutely,
now we know that the once in 100-year thing can happen. I think it just in general will open up a lot of minds.
See, our Alzheimer's disease program was based off of the success of the COVID model, that worked. So when and so there's an appetite for folks to get involved early on this kind of stuff and just accelerate. If we could do that for COVID in 9-10 months, figure out these solutions, you could really do that for any disease state if everyone convened and there was enough capital behind it that would de-risk industry in order to just go tackle the problem and do what they do best.
So Ellie, you see a lot of biotech, life sciences companies coming in through your labs at different stages. What insights do you have around funding? What do you see?
So I would agree with what you both have just said about that appetite. It is here. And we not only have startups and companies coming here, we also have investors and corporations coming to CIC specifically to ask about what talent we have. They want to have their pulse on the new technology. They want to have their pulse on the up and coming startups, and really wanting to understand who's doing what in our network and how, so that they can be the first to grab it, right? Which is really exciting. And we're seeing an influx of that as well. This just general interest and wanting to know who has the next big thing and how they can be of support. And so I also wanted to answer Christelle's question here that all of these tools at CIC are available to foreign companies. We actually have an international soft landing program that is specifically tailored to help international companies expand into the US market by way of Miami. And it is run by CIC. It's a separate program. You do not need to be a client or have a laboratory here to be a part of the program. So I'll make sure to share that information. But what's important there is that we're teaching international companies the culture of Miami, how to do business here, the immigration and permitting and all of the legalities that it takes that are really hard to navigate sometimes if you don't have there's anyone to help guide you. It leaves companies extremely vulnerable, no matter where you're from, whether you're well-funded or not, very vulnerable to know who to work with and vulnerable to be taken advantage of in this very large system. But CIC, with our 20 years of experience and having branched 9 locations all over the world, including in Europe and Asia and Tokyo, we really have this strong network of thought leaders and corporations that we've worked with in the past that have allowed us to create a curriculum that's really tailored for international companies on what to do, what not to do when you're trying to move here, before you get here, before you invest here. And so I would highly encourage all the companies that are watching us and considering Miami as a launch place to reach out, both us as well as Enterprise Florida and the Beacon Council. We have resources for you, and this is just an additional sort of 2-week intensive is what I would call it, that would allow you to just get your ducks in a row, get your paperwork in a row, so that when you get here, you know that you have the support that you need. And so I would highly encourage anyone to reach out to CIC. We're here for the entire community to help connect you with resources, investors, funding opportunities, media opportunities. It's part of our relationship management offering, is to help clients get the resources that they need and the partnerships that they need so that they can scale. Because we're not the experts. You're the experts, right? You know what you're doing. You know your technology. You know your science. We just want to help connect you and get you in front of the right people. And
Lisa, I'm terribly sorry because we're going to be running out of time. We are out of time, actually. What I would suggest is, for anyone interested, of course, in one particular of the panelists today, is to contact you directly or the companies. We have the People's tab that's right next to the Chat tab on your right. That's where you can find absolutely everyone and everyone's contact details, just to carry this conversation a little further offline. That's what I would invite you to do. And I want to thank you tremendously for this very, very deep dive into the med tech in biotech in Miami. It's very exciting. You're all very positive and extremely enthusiastic about the future of Miami and the industry in Miami. So that's very good. And Greg, if you would like to maybe add a closing word.
Yeah, just, first of all, like Serge said, just come and visit. This is the time of year to come and visit. It's the weather is perfect. Yes. It's a great time. So come and then, as people said, we all work together. We're all part of this community, and so reach out to any of us. We'll help connect you. We'll help do whatever we can to make your transition.
And Christelle has an expo booth in the expo tab. Please visit our sponsors and partners.
Please visit us. Yeah.
Exactly. Do go visit and meet and greet. That's very, very special of Miami Live. That's one of the great functionalities. So thank you very much all. Next is our session about football. Great transition. And I will see you there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.